I just got back from a Gamblers Anonymous meeting last week. And the first guy gets up there and says, wow, I had to come back in because I'm thinking about betting preseason football. But that's right around the corner, and the temptation will be dangling out there. And I'm sure the FanDuel people would love to tempt you into thinking that this was something you could make a spar on. I don't know that it is. And the man who would probably be on the opposite side of that argument joins us right now from Outkick.com. And, of course, Monster when it comes to any kind of NFL inside information. He's the number one guy. Mr. Jason Cole joins us here on the program. Jason, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. I always thought that betting on preseason football is, without question, the lowest form of degeneracy.
You're talking to our audience here. That's saying a lot. We were betting Korean baseball during the pandemic. Yeah.
Not only the audience for the show, I think that proves
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Think about that for a second, Lubie. And good morning, everybody. Great to be with you here on a Tuesday edition of the program. Think about the depth of depravity of that statement by Jason Cole, a very reputable journalist, by the way. Guy that's been featured in all kinds of different capacities, including subject of an HBO story on Real Sports, where they were tracking his, what would it be? I guess his following of that bogus athlete, right, who was like 40 years old and he was competing on a track team in colleges. And he somehow, even after like serving a 12-year prison term, he was still getting academic and athletic scholarships to various universities. And, it turned out to be a total scam, everything that the guy was doing. Wrote, NFL articles for many great publications, was a pioneer. As we said, he was the Neil O'Donnell, Jason Cole, of online scribes, if you will. Every time there was a new outlet, Cole was the centerpiece. And now with Outkick.com, which is that outkicking its coverage from a financial standpoint, probably doing very well, right? That Clay Travis guy became a monster. He replaced Rush Limbaugh, for God's sake.
He did.
Limbaugh!
He did.
The number one right-wing conservative, I don't want to use words, let's say, if you were going to say it in French, it would be cachon.
Yeah.
They would say, cachon. So if a guy comes up to you real quick and says, you're a cachon, means you're a pig. I don't know. My brother loved Rush Limbaugh. My brother, in the same family. Can you imagine?
That says a lot.
Loved Limbaugh, man. He thought Limbaugh was the most brilliant talent that he had ever heard in his lifetime.
He came from your mom and dad, and he loved Rush Limbaugh.
From my mother and father.
Your father.
My mother, I don't know, her political views were somewhat, she kept them to herself. I don't know where she stood on a lot of things. Well, grew up in, and had to leave Nazi Germany. So obviously, wasn't a big fan. I don't think she'd be a big Ron DeSantis fan when a guy's wearing a swastika on his forehead.
Jesus.
Telling you his favorite woman that he admired the most was Squeaky Fromm. Get the fuck out of here with that. Boy, is he pivoting quickly also, right? As talk about being dangled on a string, right? As soon as the money guy said, hey, listen, Ron, this ain't going anywhere. You better change your tune. Yeah. He's like, oh, okay. Oh, say, can you see? All of a sudden, he's singing the anthem to start everything out instead of the, German anthem.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, unbelievable what's happening on that scene. But, okay, do we get to it, Lubie? And we're going to talk a little baseball later on the program with the great Glenn Geffner. It's always a lot of fun because I love guys that really get immersed in this stuff. I'm a baseball fan, always have been, to a lesser extent than I used to be. Obviously, I would imagine a lot of you are in the same boat, are you not? Guys like Andy and some of the other people that tune in and participate on the chat line. The great Pat Fox. We were diehard baseball fans. We knew everything about every player. You would have the back of the baseball card, and a guy would quiz you on like the most obscure fact about Hector Lopez, and you would know the answer. And you would know his lifetime batting average, what he hit in 1953. You could go back and track virtually everything. We knew everything there was to know about the game. You had players that stayed with teams for a lot longer period of time. The only way to move to another team was to be traded, as opposed to just going in free agency. And I want to say that outside of the Kansas City A's, because when I was growing up, there were 16 teams in Major League Baseball, Lubie. 16. 8 in each league. And that was all you had. You didn't have divisions. You had an 8-team league in the American, 8-team league in the National. They didn't play each other during the regular season. That's why the All-Star game meant a lot. There were 2 All-Star games a year, and they were compelling, Lubie. I mean, you couldn't wait to see these All-Star games. It was nothing like it is today, where you're thinking, okay, which guy's going to be exhausted first in the home run derby? As you know, that has stolen a show, right? Does anybody care about the All-Star game anymore? Who won this year's All-Star game? I guess the National League finally broke through. Huh? Do you remember anything about it? Nothing, right? Not a single thing. Can you name me one play from the All-Star game this year?
Oh, no.
Nothing. Right? Did Arias get a hit? I think he
Arias brought in an RBI.
Okay.
He got a single for an RBI. I can remember that. He opened.
We used to sit there and debate. Oh, can you believe that? They pinch hit for Berra? I mean, it was crazy, and you had two games a year, but I'm not at that level of being a baseball fan anymore. I still enjoy the game. I don't know. When was the last time that you sat from first pitch to the end? Even if you don't have money on it, ever, but on my various junkets to Atlantic City, I'm always trying to get involved in at least a little baseball parlay because it takes you away from the possibility of just sitting at a video poker machine all night and watching stick after stick just go evaporate and essentially go up in smoke. This way you can sit down, you got yourself a little cocktail, you can make fun of the other people that are in the room there, you can pretend that you have the winner even when you don't, just to irritate people. Yeah, all right. You're yelling and screaming. Our favorite was when Big Rich and I were getting on the Philadelphia Eagle fans. And especially in the Super Bowl there against the Kansas City Chiefs, and kept yelling, "Money line!" Because all of the Philadelphia Eagle fans thought they had this game in the bag with the points. You're sitting there with the Chiefs on the money line. And what was the spread in that game? Were the Eagles, were they not favored by the time the game kicked off, Louis? Spread in last year's Super Bowl was what? Do we remember? No? You're making the face.
I'm trying to. It's funny. I don't remember.
You had to be laying points with the Eagles. No, the Eagles were heavily favored.
Mahomes
Not heavily, but I mean favored by the public. Public sentiment was all, the Eagles are going to do it. Mahomes sucks. He's got a bum ankle.
Mahomes didn't suck. Remember, he had the ankle, and we got the ankle, and we worried about the ankle. So Casey was favored by 2.
Oh, they weren't. They were favored by 2 points.
Andy remembers that.
Money line. I guess that wasn't the game I was thinking of. I know we pissed off a lot of people in the Harris Sportsbook there in Atlantic City. And we had no action on the game. We just wanted to make people feel like, hey, maybe you should attend a couple of Gamblers Anonymous meetings before you come back here. No, but it's very relaxing, Lubie. Right? No? Have you ever done that? Bet like a 3-game baseball parlay and just sat there and watched like all the games at once?
No.
My friend Aaron, a Met fan, was, look, he's even closer to his maker than I am. Right, the guy's, I think, going to be 88 years old on August 23rd this year. It was the same birthday as the Mustang, so it's easy to remember. Also, I guess easy to forget. No. Did you ever forget? You haven't forgotten? No, you couldn't forget Shirley's birthday, could you?
No.
Is that possible?
No.
See, I forgot my son's birthday one year, but not because I didn't know it was February 3rd. I just didn't realize that day was February 3rd. Has that ever happened to you? Where, who keeps track, right, of the days anymore?
You don't know the dates, yes. You look down, you're like, oh, shit.
Oh, shit. Yesterday was my son's birthday. I didn't even say hello, nothing. It's kind of weak, isn't it, Dad?
Yes, I guess that happens. I've not had happen to my wife as of yet. I don't know if that will be the case. And sometime soon, but it probably will happen. I mean, it happens with anniversaries. You just fucking life happens.
I don't know the date. If you ask me right now to write down the date of my wedding anniversary, I could peg a general area because I remember we got married after the Super Bowl that year in San Francisco. But I couldn't tell you the date. Is that bad, Lubie? I mean, is a sign of being an uncaring,
I don't remember it very well. Surely
unemotional, sweat hog that I am? I don't know. What would you say?
I don't remember mine exactly. I'm not gonna lie. I know it's in March.
You don't know it either. Get out of here! How can you forget that?
I'm usually
Lubie, you commemorated the occasion with like a $50,000 plunge
with 35.
on some appetizers and and a rabbi.
I'm usually good, but I don't know. I mean, there's so many fucking anniversaries and there's so much shit that I don't. It is what it is.
All right.
Dedicated every day.
I unfortunately remember my birthday because I've been betting it my whole life.
Exactly.
With the 7-5s, and like I say, Ma, I love you. Could I not have been born on another day? Would not have been better for me? Could it not have been July 2nd? You couldn't hold out till August. A lot of 8s have been coming in that spot. Anyway, if your bet was on the Marlins to make the postseason, you're starting to feel, as Joe Philbin would say, a little bit on the queasy side, are you not? In fact, I'm convinced at this point that it ain't happening.
Yeah, it's done. No, it's done.
I don't like to throw in a towel either. I've been optimistic. This is going to be very disappointing to our good friend Jim Sarney, who still believes. It doesn't look good. I mean, could it have unraveled any worse and at any more of an inopportune time?
Well, what makes me wonder is, did they fall apart, or were people like, was it Geffner? Like
Geffner pointed out something last time we spoke with him that I really wasn't looking at.
No, I'm saying people talked about it when they were playing well. Geffner was talking about it when they were starting to play poorly. But I'm trying to remember who we had on that pointed out they're playing well, but again, the second half, they played a lot of the easy teams is what people will tell you. And the second half, that doesn't happen. So I'm curious
See, I brushed that off, that logic, and thought, you know what? They're playing well enough in the first half to make you think that they can gather some momentum and maybe even build off it and spin this off into a second half against better competition where maybe they don't have the exact same measure, like 14 games over 500 success, but they sustain a 500 record and end up the year like 14 over 500. That wouldn't have been bad. Was that unrealistic to think that was possible?
Well, right now, look, the thing is, it's something Andy pointed out, but from the angle of they're playing a lot of close games for shit. So if they're playing a lot of close games, yeah, they were winning them, but a lot of close games for shit, what is it going to be like versus the good teams who really can pitch, who really can hit? And I think that's what we're seeing. It's like I think they were playing above their head one, but it's more like they were playing garbage teams. And I think it helped boost their
and having a little bit of luck, whereas they had none the previous year in that same spot, where they had an horrendous record in one-run games, enough to get Donnie Baseball fired. Donnie Baseball, who wants to extract Donnie Baseball, Don Mattingly, from their organization? Nobody. Nobody. The freaking Blue Jays said, "Hey, you want to sit on the bench, Donnie? Just look good. Okay, yeah, fine. We don't care if you do anything. We just want you here." Canada. The guy had to go to fucking Canada to get a job. Unbelievable. I guess he wanted to be there. But nonetheless, you don't divorce yourself from Don Mattingly without, thinking that, geez, I mean, we were playing in some real tough luck. It wasn't necessarily, and I don't know. I mean, do we give Skip Schumacher? They always use the cliche in baseball that a good manager can win you an extra 5 games a year. Do you buy that thing? As opposed to a lousy manager who, I guess, if you're really a bad manager, you can, if you're Aaron Boone, so to speak, in most people's opinion, you can cost a team 5 games a year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So there's about a 10-game spread. It doesn't matter. You could dig up Casey Stengel, and the most you're going to influence a team because of the manager is a possible swing of 10 games. According to, what would that be? That's not legend. That's, just a common philosophy. I'm not sure I buy it. I think some managers can screw up more than 5 games.
I was going to say, I mean, that's not the games.
And I think a really good manager can win you more than 5 games or be responsible for more than 5 wins.
Look, in baseball, I don't know how much a manager really does, but yes, I think if you're an all-time great manager, you should be able to affect a good number of games. I mean, there is pitching changes, there is gut instinct, there is lineup movement, there are, things you can do, I would think, that can affect the game in some way. I don't know. We gave Schumacher a lot of credit. I feel like now we have to give him blame. I mean, they look like
But you have to ask yourself, what does he have to work with? I mean, he was doing a great job without you thought the lineup was garbage the entire year. They made a couple of moves to shape that up. I've only seen one at bat by this guy they brought in at third base, Jake Berger.
Yeah.
Doesn't he sound like one of the Blues Brothers? Jake Berger. I saw one at bat last night, and it was a whiffaroni, which is characteristic of what this guy does. He took 2 strikes right down the middle on breaking balls, was completely left lifeless there, limp at the plate, and then swings at a fastball that nobody in their right mind would have swung at. I've often talked about that because I'm watching a little bit of this. You watch any of the Little League games that are being exploited on ESPN yet?
Years ago, I could. I gotten over it. It makes me sad.
They used to just show you the championship game on like Wide World of Sports, but now you have like regional activity from some buttfuck town in California, right? Yeah, we're out here in San Bernardino. I tell you what, they really love their Little League baseball out here. Here's little Johnny Jones at the plate. You know what? His favorite actor is Kevin Hart. And you're thinking, all right, here's a little kid with no taste, man. Well, what is the future of America going to be all about? And so I get a kick out of it though, because from the perspective that does it not take you back, Lubie? I don't know, how much Little League baseball did you play? Was it a big deal to you to play Little League baseball? See, it was for me because we dreamt of having uniforms and a field that had actual bases. And I moved out of Brooklyn when I was 11 years old, so I played like 2 years of Little League baseball there in Belmar, and I was in heaven, Lubie. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't really ready for it because we didn't play that type of game, you know. I mean, whoever got behind the plate and actually caught with catcher's gear on? You got to be kidding me. And why I volunteered for that, I don't know, except for my idolization of the great Yogi Berra, who I wanted to emulate. And I guess in terms of physique, maybe I'm getting there. But nonetheless, I mean, I didn't know anything about this sort of stuff and loved it, right? There was that lifelong jealousy. I'm still envious to this day of the kids that played in the Rockville Center Little League, because if you ever took the Long Island Railroad, Lubie, which you did, I don't know if I pointed this field out to you, the envy of every kid that played baseball what was to have a field like they had at Rockville Center, which was right off the tracks there. I mean, you could see it clear as a bell from the Long Island Railroad. And we would, roll by there in Rockville Center. They would go Freeport, Belmar, Merrick, Rockville Center. And when you got to Rockville Center, that's all you wanted to see. It was like seeing Mount Rushmore. It was incredible. It was like seeing the Taj Mahal. It was like seeing the Eiffel Tower all of a sudden in the middle of this schleppy Long Island town.
Like
and you thought, God, I want to play there.
Yeah, like a sick field with like a real fence and like a real scoreboard.
Real fence, uniform. Yeah, scoreboard. Lime, on the base paths. Not even some crazy, Krylon can. I don't even know if they had Krylon back then. I don't even think you could paint the base paths.
Where I grew up, it wasn't like there were sucky fields, but yeah, I don't remember ever getting to play because I never did travel baseball, but I mean, I played baseball a long time. I played from like age 5 to like 14.
Wow, okay.
I played baseball a long time. Like I started at T-ball and played all the way through kid pitch until I think before high school. And our fields were fine, but I remember like we'd go around and we'd see these fields and it was like, what the fuck? It was
it was great, man. We didn't even know you could hit to all fields growing up in Brooklyn because we only had enough room to have like one side or the other. And it was usually left field that was in play. I had never stood on the right side of a field. Ever. I mean, we had a first base, but it was straight up. First base was straight up the street. And so, and when you're playing baseball on concrete and pavement, I mean, it's just not the same as playing on grass.
Oh, no, playing baseball on.
But I'll never forget. I mean, I still remember this guy, a kid named Ron Wick. He was in the North Belmar Little League, so we only saw them in like all-star game situations, all right? Otherwise, but a legend, right? One of those guys that it was like, Jesus Christ, have you seen this kid Ron Wick throw the ball? Sure enough, I get to face him in an all-star game, and the first 2 guys that were up ahead of me, they both swung at pitches that were over their head to get out of there. They were scared shitless to be in there.
No.
Because if this guy, and he was wild also. I mean, he may as well have been Ryan fucking Duran. It was amazing. And threw the ball, I guess at the equivalent of whatever the highest velocity you could throw a pitch at the time. That was Wick.
Little kid, yeah.
and kids were scared, man. I mean, no one wanted to get hit by a pitch. That's for sure. I mean, it wasn't like you were going to go in there and be Ron Hunt. So, and that was the thing. I mean, you would swing at anything. And that's what this guy Berger looked like yesterday, where he was just taking like a Little League hack, Lubie. I mean, what is that for a 214 hitter? The 25 home runs are great. I don't want to, dismiss this guy right away, but the one at bat I saw just reeked of everything that's wrong with today's game of baseball. Lubie, how about this? Let me get on a soapbox here.
I'm ready. Yeah, go for it. I mean, the Marlins made all these moves, and none of them have worked out.
Well, I mean, they haven't won a game, right? They did. They won a couple of games.
One
They won that one against Philadelphia, and one else. That's it. One game since.
They won one game. Yep.
All right. Yeah, they went 1-3 against
Got
Philly.
And they
Got
lost
swept against Texas. That's 1-6, and then they lose last night. So 1-7 in their last 8 since this trade deadline. Like we said, I mean, you can't go and be hypocritical about it. When the moves were made by Kim Ng, we kind of looked at each other and said, "Okay, yeah, I mean, it's something, right?"
I was happy about the moves. I'm not going to slam her for making the moves, but if the moves don't work, we will then judge her. Like that's how it works. Is
this Avisail Garcia all over again?
Yeah. Well, that's
who, by the way, sparked a big controversy in last night's game.
And where's what? I think Soler may have gotten a home run yesterday, but
Soler and Chisholm had home runs. That was the plus side. Those were the only 2 runs for the Marlins. A 5-2 loss. In that game, Avisail Garcia is at bat. The umpire's name, I wrote it down here. Roberto Ortiz. Doesn't that sound like the former lightweight champion of the world, Roberto Ortiz? Ortiz.
A boxer out of like Mexico. 100% a boxer.
Or it could have been King Kong Ortiz, right, out of Cuba. Remember that guy? He was down in Hialeah. I think he might have fought on one of the cards you were at.
Yeah.
Luis King Kong Ortiz. Oh, I don't think he fought on one of the cards, but he was there, right? Everybody loves the guy because he had those. He had what was it? 2 fights against Deontay Wilder? Yeah,
yeah, he almost beat.
Good fights, yeah. Plus, he's like 60 years old. I told you, I called his first fight in the United States. It was like maybe, I don't know, it might have been his 3rd professional fight. And he fought, believe it or not, and I don't know how old he was at the time, but he was, dubbed to be this young sensation that was coming out of Cuba. They had a Cuban heavyweight that was as good as Teofilo Stevenson. And Eddie Kaplan and I did the call, and we were at the Tamiami Fairgrounds. And I couldn't believe it when I looked, you're looking at the roster of fights and you're thinking, okay, so who's this Ortiz guy fighting? And it says Bert Cooper. I said, Bert Cooper? That can't be the same Bert Cooper that fought like Ali in the 80s. Early 80s.
Oh, my God.
What? 70s maybe. I guess, Ali's career span, into the early 80s?
Did it?
Did it? I don't know. I want to say, maybe like late 70s, early 80s. When did he retire from boxing? Anyway, this guy was going to be the second coming. And, and I'm thinking, who's this? Like Bert Cooper. There was a guy smoking Bert Cooper, and he has to be like 80 years old at this point. And sure enough, he was. And it was that guy. So naturally, the guy looked good, but it turned out he could fight a little bit, which was great. And, he was putting on a show there against Deontay Wilder. Till Wilder hit him with one of those, I mean, do you remember the Indian clubs? Or one of those Indian bowling pins? Did you ever have those in gym class, Lubie? I'm not sure that they served any purpose. I'm not sure what you even did with them. I mean, every now and then, like the gym coach would break out, and I believe they were called like Indian pins or clubs. And they looked like, duck pin bowling pins. Okay. And I don't know. What did you do with that stuff? Does anybody remember? Did you beat each other up with that crap? I don't know. What was the purpose of putting these clubs in kids' hands? This sounds very Ron DeSantis-esque.
Yes.
He must have been running the gym class, the physical education curriculum, or somebody that, he was a great admirer of, was running it. Because they basically were telling you, let's go and play games where we can hurt each other.
Oh, fine.
Prison ball, that was another one. Did you play any prison ball in did you ever hear of this game?
No.
It's an oddball hybrid form of dodgeball that, for my money, was a little bit dangerous. I wasn't a big fan of prison ball. Where
he'd steal the bacon.
Yeah, well, you have 100 kids in a gym class, so 50 are on one side, 50 are on the other. The half-court stripe on the basketball
Kill
court.
The man with the ball. We played a game called Kill the Man with the Ball. Kill the Man with the Ball. We played that game.
Well, this it was dodgeball, and then if you got hit and you didn't catch the ball, and you got hit and you were out, you went behind the other team on the baseline, behind the other team, and now you were still eligible to eliminate people if the ball came to the back there and you got one, you could fire it at the guy from behind.
Okay.
And eliminate him that way. Prison ball. Obviously, it was wrought with danger. I mean, imagine, right? You turn around, you're thinking, I'm going to get the ball, but the guy's already got it, and he fires it right in your face from point blank range. It was such ugliness, Lubie.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Yeah. Made you want to bail out of gym class, so that's for sure. A lot of people love that game. I don't know. Is that did they use that just to measure which kids were going to be capable of walking into a school with an AK-47 years later? What do you think?
I think they use it to measure who would be great at criminal acts, because that's fucking vicious.
Prison ball, man. Anybody else ever hear of this game?
We played regular dodgeball. I don't know about whatever.
Regular dodgeball with an evil twist, Lubie.
Yeah, that's
they can get you from behind even if they've already been eliminated. So you're never done. You're never safe until the last two guys are squaring off. And then, it would be a pretty good battle to see how these guys maneuvered. I mean, all of a sudden, the guy's got defensive moves like he's Roberto Duran. It was great.
Yeah, exactly.
The little flinch moves, right? Just moved ahead a little bit. All right. But anyway, I mean, the bottom line is, as you said, you can't be bailing out and use a bat stare and just coughing up the strikeout like your man Berger did last night in that situation. But Geffner pointed this out to us a long time ago. Last time he was on the show, I guess it wasn't that long ago.
A couple weeks ago.
And he said the problem was that, their starters were beginning to fade.
Yep.
And they didn't have enough there overall, especially with Alcantara not being the same. But and the other guys had done a decent job, but they were starting to show signs of of unraveling a little bit, and they did, and they're going like 4 1/3, 3 2/3, and he said, with the bullpen not being, as great maybe as it was earlier in the season, and then starting to show its own signs of wear and tear, that everything was kind of caving in, right, just caving into the center there of the drain. And then you combine that with lack of timely hitting. I mean, I don't know. The left on base situation, it's the old joke, right? Marlins stranded more people than, they saw in 5 seasons of Gilligan's Island. Incredible. Like the left on base is they do it. It seems like every time. They had a situation last night, right? 2nd and 3rd, 2 away. Guy gets a base hit. It's a 4-3 game instead. But no, what does he do? Popped up. I think he struck out.
I don't know.
Not coming through in a clutch, my friend.
I mean, they're playing horrendous baseball. Like every phase is bad right now. Man, that's a major problem. And look, they weren't supposed to be a playoff team this year. So I get that.
What year are they supposed to be one? That's always the question.
That's my thing is when you were, what did they get to 15 games over 500? I know they were definitely 14 games. When you're 14 games over 500 around or past the midway point, like what else are you supposed to be considered? Whether they play good teams or not, they beat who they were supposed to beat. It's very disheartening because they finally went for it. And it's rare for me I'm trying to remember a time when a team went for it and it worked just badly.
It's kind of like dropping a Viagra and it doesn't have any impact that night.
Yeah, that exactly.
You're like, well, wait a minute, man. This shit always works. What's going on down there? It's never happened to me before, I can assure you.
Exactly. You still say the line even after using the pill.
Very deflating, I would say.
That's
but I mean, okay. So I don't know. Kind of leaves us where we've always been.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate. With a little bit, there was a little rise for hope. I think that the one good sign would be maybe a willingness on the part of the club to do something, and actually trying to figure it out. As Mike Westhoff, the title of his book, The Great Mike Westhoff, Figure It Out.
Yeah.
Maybe that they actually open the door where there's a possibility they can somehow figure it out, how to possibly compete in this era of baseball. And we see where money is not necessarily, the panacea and the road to success, as evidenced by any number of teams that are floundering this year. I mean, look, Padres, didn't they shock the world by spending all of this cash, Lubie? Nobody expected that from the San Diego Padres. How can they possibly make this back? The guy's got to be eating it every day, thinking, when do I sell? When do I sell? Because, the way these guys are making out like bandits is the escalation in the price and the value of the franchise. That's been the case forever in Major League Baseball. What are you laughing about, Lubie?
Andy, he's like their long range plan is 2045. They're setting up draft
Yeah.
picks. Kids that aren't even born yet. That's who they're really
Right. You're looking at embryos, right? It's like Drew Rosenhaus recruiting possible clients. And he doesn't even go to the University of Miami practice field anymore. He goes to Baptist Hospital, the adjacent, place where women are giving birth.
He's looking at the NICU. That kid's a fighter, boy. That kid.
Right? I'm surprised he doesn't have rights to the Bosa DNA. Somebody should have picked that up, right? I mean, how did the Dolphins blow that, right? They got John Bosa, who turned out to be, by any high draft standard, somewhat of a stiff. And they don't think to open up a sperm bank.
Well, I think Kumaro I think they were related. I think Kumaro and Bosa were related, and
it could be they will forever be etched in stone in terms of togetherness as guys that Shula drafted. That you said, huh? What? Come on, Don. You can do better than that. Holy Billy Milner. I mean, what are we talking about here? There were a lot of stiffs drafted highly by the Miami Dolphins, were there not?
Yes, and the Marlins as well.
Even Jimmy, I mean, you could say he bombed out with Teal Green, number 15 pick.
Oh, yeah, him and Avery.
John Avery, I mean, look, he could have drafted Randy Moss. He shrugs that off in almost MAGA-like fashion, Jimmy. When you say, hey, I mean, you could have drafted Randy Moss. Did you ever regret dropping out? And,
move back. Yeah,
the old adage, don't get cute, right? Move
Yep.
back so that he could pick up John Avery. What was that? Last pick of the first round, first pick of the second round, something like that.
Somewhere in I think the 20s.
And everybody knew that Avery was going to be a bust except Jimmy, which is rare because, I mean, he if it's most outstanding characteristic, obviously, was, and as evidenced by Zach Thomas being a Hall of Famer, being able to spot a guy that could really play.
Yeah. Well,
maybe he didn't fit the prototype, but spot a guy who could really play. The fact that he hated Marino, probably, I don't know. I mean, that was an awkward situation, wasn't it? You're a new head coach, and you have an aging quarterback who has been spectacular and is beloved universally, and especially here in town. And what do? How do you put him on the bench for Damon Heward?
No, well, that was the problem. Was he was forcing it. It was like you want to move on from Marino, fine, but you can't do it until you have the right guy. Like he was doing it with Heward. I don't know who else. It was like he was forcing.
He was trying to convince people that Heward was a better quarterback, which might have even I don't want to say this because I love Dan Marino, but maybe at that time could have been the case that he wasn't that bad of an alternative. Let's put it that way.
No,
I don't want to go as far as to say you can never say and retain any level of credibility if you came out and made the statement that Damon Heward was a better quarterback than Dan Marino.
Marino was far from himself, but he was better than Damon Heward. I mean, there might have been middle of the road guys.
Marino with his right arm chopped off was better than Damon Heward. You could have got Monty Python on Marino. But Jimmy, was trying to convince people that was the case because I guess, the stress of realizing that I'm never going to get done what I need to with Danny Boy here at the helm. He just isn't going to do what I want him to do, which was run the football to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar every play for a half a yard.
Well, yeah.
That is true. I mean, Ron St. John was the PA guy, and I still hear him ringing in my ears, right? And I was like, that was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1. 2nd and 9.
He'd run it 3 straight times.
That was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He didn't stumble over it. Gain of 1. 3rd and 8. Here we go with the 3rd and 8. To tell you what, let's see. They're going to run the ball again. Jimmy's trying to punch it in there and see if he can't get that offensive line to gather some momentum. And you're thinking, if this guy hands off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar one more time, no wonder Marino wants to blow his brains out. Surprised he didn't do it right there on the field. Just take a revolver and a little Russian roulette. I'm throwing the ball at McDuffie.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Marino, like in disgust, would just fire one into like quadruple coverage deliberately just to piss Jimmy off. And it would pop off somebody's helmet, and the next thing you know, it's being run back for a score. And Danny Boy was doing that little thing where he kind of feigns like he's going after the guy.
He never even tried.
You talk about the Ole defense. Or Red Sea. I don't know. That wasn't even Red Sea. It was always like he would be running off into the corner.
Yes.
After a guy that was coming back for a pick 6, but it was kind of like, he was running like Bernie Kosar, sort of like Ichabod Crane. Anyway, but Jimmy's, I mean, his real talent, I thought, what was his ability to assess talent for the most part. I mean, he was wrong about a few guys. But remember in that preseason game when Avery finally got a decent play going after looking like crap, and everybody was saying during training camp, what the hell were you thinking, Jimmy? And then all of a sudden, it was like either a third and short or a fourth and short, and the Dolphins were around their own 30-yard line. And somehow he got around the left end and was running down the sidelines, and he was going to score. He was a very fast running back. And Jimmy was running with him every step of the way. He was so happy, man. His hair was standing up like Don King, and he's running down the sidelines there. And I don't know that he would want to recall this. Like, if we get down to the Big Chill ever again, I'm not, sure that we even want to bring this up. But, yeah, I mean, he felt so vindicated that he had picked this guy. And then, unfortunately,
he sucked. Yeah, that guy sucked.
Yeah, I mean, we all make mistakes. Is that not a fair statement?
He built a defense. He built a great defense. Look,
yeah.
The Gardner, and I think Bowens was him. And
Tim Bowens, yeah.
Sertan.
I think Bowens was brought in by Shula, I want to say.
Maybe not Bowens, but the other guy, Gardner, Thomas, Taylor, Sertan, Madison were all Jimmy Johnson.
Yes, that was all Jimmy. Yeah,
maybe the same draft, to be brutally honest. Like he did an
right.
amazing.
And think about that, right? Sertan and Madison, were they both second-round picks?
Yes.
Or was Sertan even later than that?
None of them were first. I know that much. I mean,
yeah.
they may have been second.
Jack was a fifth-round pick. Jason Taylor, that was a pretty good selection. No, Taylor, I think he might have been a third-round pick. Is that possible?
It was none of them were first-rounders.
Yeah.
Even Gardner, who out of Baylor, was a big deal, but he had problems.
Yeah, so Taylor was either second or third round out of Akron, and everybody was like, "Hey, wait, you're taking this skinny kid out of Akron? What the fuck, Jimmy? I mean, don't get cute, don't get too clever." But he really knew, I mean, how to assess college players that could transition to the pros, and he knew how to find guys that he could plug in that he had previously in his coaching system and make it work. So there was, I don't know. I mean, didn't Jimmy Johnson make a difference? If Nick Saban is coaching that same talent with the Miami Dolphins, does he win as many games as the Jimmer did? And people thought Jimmy, his tenure here was kind of a failure because,
Well, he didn't stick around. It wasn't a failure. He didn't stick around. He handed off a team with a lot of talent.
Gave a team to Dave Wanstead, who won like 11 games 2 years in a row with that team.
The problem. He handed off a team with a lot of talent. He just didn't get to the offensive side of the ball yet because, again, he was futzing around with Marino there.
Yeah.
But he handed it to Wanstead, who was a clear failure and sucked. Like the fact that Wanstead won 11 games 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
Wanstead. He was horrendous. Like that team could have won 13, 14 games if Jimmy Johnson was the coach. And they
kind of Larry Coker syndrome.
Jimmy Johnson and Ricky Williams, and had surrounded him with actual competent receiving talent and a competent offensive line. With that defense, they would have been as good as anyone in football. But it was the wrong coach.
How many carries did Ricky have that year? Like 500? That was unbelievable.
He just
this poor guy, man. He's just out in the car smoking weed in between plays. It's like, whoa, man, I'm getting hit a lot tonight. And you're looking at box score there, and he's got 41 carries for 215 yards. It was incredible. Wanstead, who was widely respected, and as everybody always says, well, he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Nice guy,
but
nice.
That's sports for you. All right, so we're pronouncing the Marlins dead on arrival here. We'll talk to Glenn Geffner about that later on in the program. Antwan Staley, I mean, can you walk into a better spot than this kid did? I mean, he's living a bit of a charmed life. This was a young man that Lubie discovered. I believe he was, among the category of sort of .com schmank, no?
Yeah,
you found him originally. He was with some organization.
Antwan Sports, and he covered the Dolphin for like a USA Today offshoot. It wasn't actually directly USA Today. It was like Antwan Sports presented by USA Today or something.
He was writing for a pamphlet, basically, and you put him on as an expert guest.
I mean,
we liked the kid because he did know what he was talking about, and he kind of got like the spirit of the show. And so we thought that was great. And then what? Did he get a job with one of the local papers first? Because he's now the New York Jet beat reporter
for a while,
for the New York Daily News.
Hey, he's been doing it for, is it a year now? He's been doing it for a while now.
He's
been doing it for a good amount of time.
What happened to
Meta?
Yeah, he got in some kind of jackpot, huh?
Something happened well before Staley. I mean, they had someone before Staley, I think, doing that.
Yeah,
Staley got the job. He was doing some stuff with the Pac-12, covering Oregon and covering the Carolina Panthers. I think out of Carolina.
Think about this. I mean, you still have some competition among newspaper sports sections in New York. Daily News, which I wouldn't say this necessarily to Antwan Staley to insult him, but I don't think their sports section is as good as the Post. How about that, Libby?
Oh no, I mean there was a time when you had
it used to be very comparable. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean they had real good columnists, and you could compare them with the New York Posts. And then you have other newspapers there though that are prominent, especially if you're on Long Island. You have Newsday, which was a great publication and had one of the better sports sections ever put out in the country. At least when I was growing up, Tony Kornheiser was like a young columnist for Newsday, and you had all kinds of legendary guys there and good writers, feature writers. They really did a great job, and that's still in existence. I would imagine the Long Island Press is El Finito. Have you ever heard of the Long Island Press, Libby? That was the paper that you delivered if you couldn't get a job delivering Newsday. Because nobody got the fucking thing, man. It was like getting a copy of the Pompano Pelican, where they throw it in your driveway. And the only thing, how can you read it when it already has like 2 sets of tire marks on it? Because, it's been there for 3 days in the rain. Then you finally pick it up and go, hey, look at that. And there's going to be a free band tonight. There wasn't much in there. Kind of like where I started out at the Fontana Herald News. But the Long Island Press, was a real secondary paper. So what do you have in New York? You have the New York Times, but they just pretty much abdicated their, commitment to sports, and now they're like bringing in. It's almost like bringing in network radio at a local station.
Yes,
can you imagine?
Yes.
So who would want that? I mean, you want local writers. So they don't have a sports section essentially anymore. The Times. What else is in existence there? Daily News and the Post. Any other New York papers still in circulation? What else would be a part of it? Used to have the Herald Tribune. What else? There was, like there were like 5, 6 newspapers, it seemed like, at the time growing up. I always liked the New York Herald Tribune because they featured the racing section very prominently when we were doing current events in the 3rd grade. And they would call on me and my partner next to me, young girl named Drina Turner, very lovely young lady. And we would be going over that day's card at Aqueduct while everybody else was discussing what was happening with the president. I like that girl, man. She was great, man. Turned me on to fried chicken for the first time. All right, we're coming back with more in a moment, and we have Antwan Staley going to join us about 8:15 this morning. So we'll get into what's going on there. I mean, imagine covering this beat, Lubie. What the hell? You're a neophyte beat writer in New York, a tough place where the media is enormous in terms of its influence and presence, and and they're all trying to get the latest on Aaron Rodgers. And this guy is in there competing with them, and he has to do it at a very high level, right? New York Daily News, they're not going to settle for being second fiddle.
No, I mean, he's been around. He was down here with that. Then he was with the Tallahassee Democrat covering Florida State for a couple years. It might have been longer than that. Then he was covering the Carolina Panthers for some kind of some site. So he's done a bunch of stuff, and he's been around. So, I mean, he was ready for a big-time step up, and I knew he could handle it, and he's doing a hell of a job. And he went there at a perfect time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at this. They have like a zillion guys covering the Jets in the New York Post. Cream of the crop, the big headline today. Breakout stars Quinnen, Sauce, motivated, using each other as inspiration to reach. These are the expectations, Lubie. You don't see words like this in headlines in the Miami Herald or the Sun Sentinel. Do they even have a guy covering the Dolphins? Oh, yeah.
Yes, they do.
Our guy, Chris Perkins.
Well, that's a Sentinel. The Herald out of
and David Furones.
Yes.
They both cover the Dolphins. So they have 2 people assigned to this beat, which is great. But they don't use words like Super Bowl. Super, right there in the headline, Lubie, the subhead.
That's fine. Good luck.
These are the expectations for the New York Jets. And then later on, so Antwan's going to join us about 8:15, and then later on, Glenn Geffner. And Geff is all in on baseball, man. This guy has some really deep-rooted, foundations in the game in terms of his knowledge, his theories, his principles. He knows what the fuck he's talking about, basically, which is kind of interesting for us, here on this program. As we just, not that we have a knee-jerk reaction to this stuff, but I actually threw in the towel last night. I texted Jim Sarney. It's over.
Yeah, he hasn't been really defending the Marlins so much as of lately.
He's given up on them. He's watching women's soccer. He's watching the Japanese, see if they can go all the way.
Didn't Soler have 20-something home runs in like June? Wasn't he like?
Yeah, he hasn't exactly been on fire.
He's 26. So is he really?
I think he had 20. It's 27 now, or maybe even 28.
26. It said 26. So is he hit 3 home runs in the last 2 months? Is that true? Is that really true?
That would be the case. Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh. It hasn't been pretty, Lubie. It's the things that they just aren't doing that they were earlier, where A, they were pitching pretty well, and then B, they would get these timely hits. That's how you win the one-run games. I mean, you can't be leaving guys second and third, nobody out, and you don't score, that kind of stuff. You can't let that happen. And it is happening to the Marlins on a consistent basis. How many feeble at-bats can you have in those spots?
But they do it time and time again. And it's the opposite. Whenever they're pitching in an instant like that, where they used to get the big out, it's like an automatic 2 runs.
Yeah. All right, so a couple of other developments here I want to touch on. Avisail Garcia, by the way, got ejected. A horrible strike call by this guy, Roberto Ortiz. It was the first pitch of the at-bat. You could see that he was frustrated with that call. I mean, the ball is like literally in the dirt. Guy rings him up for a strike. So it's 0-1. He fouls off the next pitch. He's down 0-2. He eventually strikes out. And he's pissed. So, he says something to Ortiz, and then they get into it. He gets ejected. And then later on, I don't know how Schumacher got out of that situation, because he came out to defend his player. And then he probably said something again to Ortiz about what a horrible job he was doing on the balls and strikes. And I don't know if that was consistent through the whole game because I didn't watch it. But that particular pitch, if you were a hitter and the guy called a strike on you on that, Lubie, I'm telling you, you would have been tempted to just take the bat and go Johnny Roseborough on that, and come right out there and try and hit Juan Marichal in the head. Because, it was horrible. But, Avisail Garcia, the other thing is, hey, you're hitting a $198, kid. So guess what?
Swing,
you're not necessarily getting the Bryce Harper treatment at home plate. Does Harper get the benefit of calls, or do umpires hate him like the rest of the universe does?
I mean, I presume he gets benefit. I mean, he's a multiple-time MVP winner, so...
You know what? I mean, is he like one of the tougher guys to embrace? As I mean,
100%. Like the other day when that Phillies, the Marlins were up 1-0 the entire game. Alcantara pitched out of his fucking mind, and then Harper came up with a man on first, and he hit a double that shouldn't have been a double. But Garcia is not a good fielder, so he played a ball on the way to the wall. Horrendous.
Wait a minute. That was Avisail Garcia that butchered that fly ball.
Yes, he's in left. So Harper got to second and did some fucking weirdo celebration. It's like regular season game in the 8th inning or 9th inning, and you didn't even win it. It's not a walk off. Like, it was a weird.
The guy's entitled.
Which I didn't say. I didn't even come on here and say anything. I let him do it, but it was sort of like. Baseball guys don't. I don't care when they do the off a home run.
What were you expecting? Like Stan Musial out there?
I don't know. He was still on the base.
Kick a little dirt as he pulled into second base.
He was still on the base. It wasn't like he was in the dugout, and they weren't winning still. It was only a tie, and it was like he did some cocky thing, and I was like, there's Harper. I mean, baseball players don't.
I mean, he's one of those guys that you're rooting for him to strike out every time. I mean, look, we had that debate for years. Was he more overrated than the stone crab? Which I have to say, I mean, stone crabs are great if somebody gives them to you.
Yeah, they're great when it's not $40 for fucking one.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine you look down at the plate there and you go, "That's it." And then the guy comes back and he throws a little piece of parsley on there as a garnish and says, here you go. Now it's $40 worth. All right. We're coming back with more in a moment. Now we'll have Antwan, Staley talking about the Jets and the NFL, and then Glenn Geffner on Major League Baseball. That's straight ahead here on the Defo Show on this Tuesday. What was that now, Lubie?
Shirley was yelling at me. I monitor the air conditioning because our bills have gotten fucking ridiculous. And she's going on a trip, so her hair has to be perfect. And if it's a degree off, you can fuck the hair up, which I understand. But
never mess with the wife with the AC, and be happy. It's better to have your wife like the AC super cold than it is to have her think that it's always too cold. Yeah,
that's
most women are cold all the time. I mean, I don't mean in that sense, but
Shirley's
in the sense of actually physically cold.
In the car, she gets cold very easily.
Yeah.
In the home, she wants it. I don't know.
See, Mustang's just the opposite, man. She's more of a schwitzer. I think she has some Jewish blood in her. I really do. Puerto Rican blood. I don't know whether Jews in Puerto Rico was Camacho Jewish. I think so.
I don't think Camacho is.
Hector, Hebrew man, Camacho.
I don't know.
Would be Hector the Heb Camacho? I mean, can we say that?
We monitored the AC pretty well. We've gotten to a nice groove, but she's leaving, so I should have left it alone. I knew to leave it alone. I was just pushing.
And plus, she's leaving, Lubie. You couldn't wait.
100%. I did it 2 degrees. Like the 2 degrees isn't that big of a fucking deal. I know that.
I'll never forget the time I stayed at my grandfather's. He had a little condo on Washington Avenue before South Beach was South Beach. I just moved down here, and I needed a place to. I thought if I could crash at his house the night that I arrived, that and I hadn't seen him for a long time. That I'd be able to find a place the next day and I'd be out of there, which I essentially was. But I had to leave out of necessity because, the two things. You talk about this blast furnace that we're experiencing right now in terms of the weather here in South Florida, where it's like what the feels like temperature. I mean, it feels like somebody put a hot rocket up your ass. No, you're ready to melt. But my grandfather, he always had the plastic on the couch, right? So I'm sleeping on this couch that has the plastic still on it from when it came out of the store.
Oh, that's the worst. Yeah, my great-grandparents had that. Oh, my God.
And at 90-something, this guy didn't trust his wife, so he kept a piece of tape on one of the doors there. And if the tape was broken, he knew on the front door, if the tape was broken, he knew that she left and was going to see her boyfriend. And I'm thinking, Grandpa, man, if she's going out to see her boyfriend, man, you should be applauding this woman.
Good for her.
She's as old as you. The fuck?
Good for her.
Yeah. I mean, let her dance to the music. Dance to the music. I mean, she's got a little Sly and the Family Stone going in her headset as she roller skates out the door, rollerblades onto what is now South Beach, but it was out to Cockerville. I mean, it literally was God's waiting room, waiting for Godot.
Yeah, my grandparents lived on
People
South.
in rocking chairs and all this bullshit.
Yeah, my great-grandparents lived on South Beach, but it didn't feel like where South Beach is now.
Anyway, he's got the air conditioning. It's 95 degrees outside, and it's like 97 in the house. Okay, because he didn't want to run any air conditioning ever, my grandfather. And so I had to do it. I mean, I was schwitzing. Literally, you needed a squeegee to get me off of the couch because I was stuck to the fucking plastic. Okay, it was a free night, but it was a mistake, right? I should have just gone and spent a little money on a hotel, but I was unfamiliar with the territory. I thought it would be good to see my grandfather. And, sure enough, I go and I take the thermostat and I turn it down, not to like anything reasonable, but to like 94, Lubie. 94. That's all I wanted to hit. I'm willing to put up with 94. I figured a 3 degrees of dropping temperature will be enough to get me to the morning. And as soon as the sun comes up, whoosh, Grandpa, thank you. Love you. Hope to see you again, but I'm out of here.
Yeah.
My grandfather comes hurtling out of the bedroom. He literally heard the click.
He heard you.
As if I was a safecracker, I was turning this thing, like, right? I'm in there in the Italian job or something. Hey, look at that. I think I got it. And the guys are all in the background there, and they're ready to come in there with, some kind of, way of blasting the safe door off. And, they're all smiling. Oh, good. DeForest figured it out. And he freaked out that I turned the thing down like 3 degrees, Libby.
That's crazy.
So I understand his syndrome. But, you don't want to mess with the wife.
I'm usually really good at it. In the mornings, because it's cool, I'm able to get away with it, but she's leaving. So she just had her hair done and she's been extra fucking cautious. So
yeah.
It's
funny though. I mean, yeah, you would have thought I took a blowtorch to this thing to
94. That's a joke.
94 degrees I was going to drop it to.
Why do you have a fucking...
Oh, the schwitz that was on this couch. It was unbelievable to me.
I can't.
Imagine you're impaled to the couch after like sleeping on it or trying to sleep on it for a half an hour. And what are you going to do? I mean, it's weird to just sleep with no blanket or cover, right? I mean, is that a security thing? But, imagine trying to cover yourself up on top of that.
No.
Forget about it, man.
Forget
about it. I miss him, though. He was a lovely man. No, he really was. He was a great guy. I can't believe he was worried his wife was cheating on him, though. That always freaked me out.
Yeah, it was your grandma. You mean your grandmother, or was like?
Oh, I know. My grandmother was long gone. I mean, she
So it was
died
like
at sort of a young age for grandmothers. I mean, like for me, it was old, but at the time, because I was like 5 or 6 years old. Yeah, but she unfortunately checked out. Probably in her 60s. I
so
would
it was
say.
like a newer wife. So it was like
Girlfriend. Wasn't even his wife. Yeah, I don't think they were married.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't want to, put the. Imagine this: that condo, which now would be on South Beach, Washington Avenue, which I'm sure that building's probably been destroyed and re-erected as something else. But I think the place was worth like 30 grand back then.
Oh Jesus!
Right, and it was like sort of like Washington and maybe Fifth Street, just off. I don't know. Does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, it was like prime.
Oh my God!
Prime South Beach real estate.
Holy shit! Like a lot of the places still suck, but they're fucking with a shitload.
Yeah. Right, they're all like $1 million joints now. I mean, easily.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it was like 30 dimes. Well, this is 1980 something.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and nobody knew they were going to resurrect this and turn it into a hotspot, an international destination of choice.
Yep.
Right. I mean, really, it was the Surf Comer Hotel where I first stayed when I was on a high school vacation. Came down there the first time, fell in love with South Florida, thought it was great, and I mean, the place was a dump, complete. All of those places were just run down, and you would see nothing but 90-year-old ladies,
100 place
in rocking chairs, and then the Mariel boat lift happened right around the time I came here.
Oh wow!
So the White Hart Hotel, where I eventually set up a residence for a week. Which this place was such a piece of trash, Louis, that I ended up sleeping in my MGB a couple of nights while I was paying for this hotel.
Just to have a shower.
Where was Jeff fucking Weinseer when you needed him, man?
Exactly.
We were talking about the cockroaches as if we were on like a Navy ship. Like, there's one at 11 o'clock. Another one, 12 o'clock, straight up. Like, holy crap. I mean, bold. I mean, these bugs were. I don't know what they did. You can't have that much bug insect infestation and run a hotel, can you?
I mean, New York, I'm sure they'd have it, but not down here. New York has some places. Yeah. New York is weird with fucking roaches. It's just accepted.
Yeah. It's like, hey, buddy, you got a roommate.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, yeah, that's the worst you have is roaches. Oh, stop.
Give me a little bit of the pillow, will you? Huh? All right, we're coming back with more. Antwan Staley on the New York Jets. Speaking of New York and the Big Apple, and that should be an interesting story. And then Glenn Geffner later on, and we'll be back with more here on the Defo Show in a moment. Now that
the time.
The memories. It's 8:03. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant. And you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style. And you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
Hear me. I am your new president. From this day on, the official language of San Marcos will be Swedish. Silence! In addition to that, all citizens will be required to change their underwear every half hour. Underwear will be worn on the outside so we can check. Furthermore, all children under 16 years old are now 16 years old.
What's the Spanish word for straitjacket?
Power has driven him mad.
Welcome back to the Defo Show.
There may well be a very good reason to hold a negative opinion of Woody Allen, Lubie. I mean, some of the allegations, I don't know that anything's, is it Kevin Spacey syndrome? Where you're thinking, how is it that like 50 people have come forward and said this guy groped them at some club, but he's always acquitted of, this was like, who was the guy that played Beretta getting off on that murder rap where, I mean, literally he's like walking down the street, Robert Blake. Walking down the street with the gun that he just like shot his wife.
Yeah, he did it in public.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And what gun? I don't know. Woman, what woman? But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's always wild, when we see people getting away with stuff. But I think this is going to be hysterical. This is going to be the greatest drama that we've ever seen played out in the history of anything, where you're going to have Mike Pence, the former vice president of the United States, and he is going to be, you would have to think, the key witness against the Trumpster, who's going to be sitting there with that stupid puss of his as Pence, who never, I mean, he finally dropped a pair of balls, Lubie, somehow, reluctantly, maybe, but, and now he's sort of becoming a little bit more inflammatory with his statements and saying that, hey, listen, the guy told me straight up he knows he lost the election. He asked me to do something that was completely illegal. And even after that, I mean, he went around, to try and change the voters that were going to be casting their ballots in the Electoral College, for God's sake. I mean, it's so funny because the guy that was screaming about election fraud was the one guy that was committing the biggest fraud.
Yeah, exactly.
The only fraudulent part of the election was, this guy's attempt to then turn it around.
Yes.
That was it, right?
Yeah, the election was actually one of the cleanest, if not the cleanest election ever.
Who knows? I mean, maybe there was some corruption. Who the fuck knows? But, nothing like this.
No, it was the opposite. Because they were so paranoid about it, they made security a thing, and it was actually the dumbest thing he could have done because he made sure there was no fraud. Yeah. It was actually the opposite. Like,
you would think they would have found something, right? At that time, this bar, what was very much a sycophant of the Trumpster, and was more than happy, I would imagine, if Trump had been even remotely accurate with any of his claims, and Giuliani out there screaming, and who's that crazy woman? How come there's always a crazy woman in the Trump entourage, right? What was it? O'Dallas? What was the name of the the nut job from the Apprentice that he had like in the cabinet?
Oh God!
Whatever happened to her?
Oh, you're talking about. She was working with him. I don't know.
Yeah. But the guy's literally taking people off quiz shows and then putting them into the cabinet.
Oh yeah, for sure. What do you mean? His kids had no. His kids were
his kids. Where are they, by the way? I mean,
son-in-law was the diplomat to fucking Saudi Arabia, like some real highfalutin job, and he had no expertise in that area at all.
Think about it. I mean, and this is all a tribute to Woody Allen because he was absolutely on the money with this shit. Yeah.
I mean, the stuff DeSantis says that he thought would work. So someone told him that this was a good idea.
Because they probably saw bananas.
Yeah.
Imagine it. This is how, DeSantis is, planting the foundation for his run for the presidency of the United States of America. And, some guy that happened to be, I don't know, would any MAGA Republican even, consider watching a Woody Allen flick? I don't think so, right? But, I mean, he was on the money. What year did that come out? Like early 70s?
70s. Yeah,
Bananas? 70s. Early 70s? That's incredible. I mean, that he nailed it. And we're going to see this playing out, this lunacy, as you're going to have the vice president of the United States, former vice president, and he's going to be pointing a finger.
Oh, wow.
As if it was the Carruth trial, right?
1971 is when it came out.
What was that guy's name? Van Earl something? It wasn't Van Earl Wright. He was a sportscaster. Van Earl something.
No idea.
And he points at Ray Carruth, and the attorney who was a prominent North Carolina criminal defense attorney makes a fatal mistake and says, he asks a question he doesn't know the answer to.
Yeah, you never do that.
This guy, he says, well, who is this bitch you're talking about? And the guy points right at Carruth and goes, there's the bitch right there, your client. And that was it. Whoosh, ball game over. And it was, a good one here today. That's going to wrap it up for baseball and Valentine. And this lawyer, I don't know that he wouldn't have gotten him off anyway, because it did appear that he was guilty. Did it not? Ray Carruth, would you say?
Yes, he for sure did it.
Yeah.
He knew he did it.
I mean, you had this guy who was going to do life anyway, and so he didn't get any bargain out of the deal, did he? The Van Earl guy? Watkins, was that his name? Watson? What am I talking about? A second baseman for the... Here's Van Earl Watson, the shortstop here for the Astros. Just got called up there from AAA, and I tell you what, he was doing a dynamite job down there, Mel. What do you think? What was that guy's last... we had a guy on that was... like a court TV guy, and he loved that we remembered this whole trial.
He was covering that case. Yeah, that was one of his early cases that he did with the court TV he was doing at the time. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting for me. I don't know. I enjoyed watching it because when court TV first came on, because it was so different from any court portrayal that you would ever seen. And you realize that the nonsensical minutia that people argue about in court trials doesn't have any of the real sensationalism that you would see if you're watching like L.A. Law or something, or Perry Mason, or any court show. I guess what was it? The Defenders? That was before your time. That was E.G. Marshall and the Defenders, man. That was a good courtroom drama show. Very good, because they didn't always win. That was the key, right? Mason, you knew what was happening at the end.
Oh, yeah,
I can't stand it anymore. I did it.
Yeah, they rat themselves.
He's in the back. He's about to get away with fucking murder and send the husband of his now girlfriend to jail for the rest of his life. What could be better? Don't tear up those exacta tickets, Andy. There's a steward's inquiry. All right. We're going to talk to Antwan Staley here in just a couple of minutes, so we're going to come back with that. We'll get into the New York Jets and what's going on in training camp. I mean, euphoria so far. Although they're giving only, tepid, mixed reviews to Aaron Rodgers' play so far. Does he not have it anymore, Lubie? Are they ignoring the obvious that Rodgers doesn't have it anymore?
I think he'll be fine. I think this idea that he's going to carry them to Super Bowl is a bit of a stretch.
Super Bowl, no less will do.
We'll see.
All right. Robert Reed, yeah, okay. Andy, good job there. From the Brady Bunch. He was the young attorney there. What was he? Was he an apprentice there to E.G. Marshall or something? He was assisting him. And that was a good series, Libby. I don't know. It's gone away. I mean, does it even play on like the channels that carry like Andy of Mayberry and stuff like that?
I used to watch Nick at Night all the time. I never even heard of that show.
No, the Defenders. Good one.
Yeah,
all right, coming back with more in a moment here on the Defo Show on a Tuesday. Later on, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox at 12 o'clock today. And we'll be on the road the rest of the week. What's the name of this spot?
Foxy Brown. Supposedly
Foxy Brown's?
A well-known place that I've heard a lot about that I have yet to go to. So I'm super excited.
Okay, yeah. I don't think I've ever been there, so that'll be good.
Been around
and
for
then
years.
Seaside Subs, terrific. Although, make sure I get my tuna sub there because Mayo has a tendency to just overblow it. And he hates tuna sandwiches for some reason. So
It's only a human that
what do
hates it.
you do? I mean, the rest of the world loves it. This guy hates it, but then it's Mayo. I mean, confusion is my middle name, right? I bet on his birth certificate, does it say will be the will be the practitioner of great confusion in my lifetime? I guess we all are, right? No, you're not experiencing any of that, are you, Lubie?
My whole life is that. What are you talking about? That's my whole existence.
I mean, I must be confused because I have on the screen here France and what is that? Morocco? Yeah, Morocco.
There you go.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Wow. And France is burying Morocco right now. That could have been us. The word is they're going to fire the coach. That's the big thing.
Oh, they have to. I mean, it's
Antwan Schlepsky or whatever his name was. Who was this guy?
I don't know. It was a disaster.
What made it so, though, Louis? I mean, did the rest of the world just catch up with the women of the United States of America? Is that it? Vladko Andonovsky. He's a goner, Lubie. I will guarantee you that. Gone. 0-2 in tournaments with supposedly the best team, in the world. Unbelievable. All right, back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
8:15.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752. Why go up against insurance companies alone when you can have Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa on your side?
Do your little toss. Do your little toss.
Come on.
Oh,
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. Thank God.
Get a penalty, you idiot.
Thank God.
Thank God, please. This has nothing to do with God.
We now return to the Defo Show.
Do your little toss. Do your little toss.
Come on.
Oh,
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. Thank God.
Get a penalty, you idiot.
Thank God.
Thank God, please. This has nothing to do with God.
We now return to the Defo Show.
All right, play that a couple of times so you could have a chance to decipher exactly what was going on there. If this was some kind of mystery sound game, Lubie, you could probably drop that in there, and I would imagine you could give people 100 guesses as to what that was, and they would have no idea. And the last thing that they would think is that was the reflection of the level of insanity displayed at the Lubitz household during Florida State football games. Because you were absolutely beside yourself, and they were up. Weren't they up like 62-7 at the time against Chattanooga or something?
We joke about that. That was the ACC championship game against Georgia Tech, where it was actually a close game that FSU was winning at the time.
All right, very good. Where do we stand with Antwan Staley? Do we have Antwan with us?
There, ready to roll.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, there was no indication there, and so we were kibitzing here about this thing, and this is a pleasure for us to introduce this gentleman to you. And, he's been with us a few times on the show since we've gone into the streaming format, almost a couple of years ago now. And, it was, just an interesting discovery because Lubie says, hey, I got this guy, Antwan Staley. He covers this, he covers that. And we said, okay, yeah, let's put him on, see what he's got. And it was so impressive. And so it's no surprise that he's made a meteoric rise through the media. And now is the beat writer for the New York Jets for the New York Daily News.
Yes, sir.
Which is a highly competitive media market, and people still get newspapers there. We welcome to the show once again, Antwan Staley. Antwan, how are you? Good to have you with us.
I think your time is a little bit off, but I guess 2 years can seem like about 6 or 7. So
yes,
good to be with y'all again.
No, it's good to have you. With us, especially. You have to be busy. I mean, how much of a hustle is it to be on the on the Jets beat, especially now. I mean, there was some optimism last year, and you're thinking maybe Zach Wilson will have a big year, and the Jets are assembling a decent team overall. We didn't know how good those rookies were going to be, on offense and defense, but I mean, it all changed dramatically. So, what has that done in terms of heightening the amount of time that you spend on this beat? If it wasn't relentless before, what is it now with Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, I spend about the same time. It's not necessarily that. It's just a lot more media attention towards the team, and a lot of people just want to talk to you about the team. Really, I mean, anytime you have Aaron Rodgers coming to the fold, then obviously that's going to bring a lot of eyeballs to the team. So yeah, I definitely think that's basically what it is. More media attention. Obviously, Hard Knocks is there with the Jets too. That premieres later on tonight. On HBO and Max and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just really, just dealing with everything that comes with Aaron Rodgers and, and the expectations of possibly contending for a Super Bowl. Or at least that's what some people think anyway.
Have you had any indications, Antwan, of what rookie scrub that has no chance to make the team that HBO is going to concentrate on through the first couple of episodes where the guy actually, maybe even makes it by the first cut? Has that guy been identified yet?
No, not at all. Well, here's the thing too. Jets are doing things differently than other teams usually do. Hard Knocks. So what that looks like, I'm not necessarily sure, but just me knowing the Jets the way that I do, this will be very controlled on their end, especially considering they have their own documentary that they also come out with on Mondays.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's an interesting, situation. The last Jet appearance on Hard Knocks was brilliant, though. I mean, between Rex and our man Mike Westhoff, who got the Joe Pesci Award, I think even was nominated for an Emmy for some of those expletive-laced, talks that he would give in the meeting rooms. So I would imagine it's a little calmer situation around the Jets organization in terms of their leadership now than it was during the Rex Ryan era.
Well, it's different. You don't have like the one-liners and things of that nature. I mean,
yeah,
that's for sure. But I mean, Robert Saleh is an intense guy too, but just kind of in a different way. I think people will get to know him a little bit. He's a younger guy. Obviously, with Rex, then I think people kind of already knew what he was as far as his personality. But with Robert, he's a little bit, he can be intense too, but just kind of in a different way. He's a little bit quieter and milder than Rex was. At least, it comes off across that way. But I think people will get a different perspective just seeing him, on Hard Knocks there, especially throughout the national audience.
We're watching a little Aaron Rodgers. Naturally, you get, a complete rundown of all of his activities. He's at the Met Gala. He's like shooting the puck with the Rangers. He's at the Barclays Center for big fights. I think he had a role in a Broadway show. I think they gave him a cameo. I mean, have you ever seen a happier guy in your life than Aaron Rodgers? We were talking about the happiest person we've ever seen was a very jacked up Dennis Rodman. We don't know what drug he was on that night, but whatever it was, Antwan, we were thinking, hey, if you could share a little bit of that, I want to feel this good. Have you ever seen a happier guy than Aaron Rodgers? And how sincere is it? Or is it just a general reaction to getting out of Green Bay?
Well, if you've been around the Fort Lauderdale, I think everybody would say Dennis Rodman happy at one point in time. I won't get too much into that.
Yeah.
Answer your question. Yeah, I mean, it's a new energy for him. It's a new start, and he feels refreshed. He's happy to be with the Jets, the team that really wants him. I think he felt like in Green Bay, they really, they wanted him, but they were preparing for either his retirement or exit at some point, and that's the reason they ended up drafting Jordan Love. Now with the Jets, they feel like he probably feels like they need him, and they do. I mean, they do. Like a lot of people need him. Robert Saleh probably needs him to keep his job possibly this year. Joe Douglas maybe as well. If the Jets don't make the playoffs, then you're definitely going to see a lot of changes around the organization. Although I do think they're a playoff team, but yeah, I definitely think having him there just changes the expectation level of the whole team. We talk about, like you talked about, this is a team that was 7-4 at one point in time last year and looked like they were poised to make the playoffs after, a big win against, the Miami. And obviously, although I know Tua wasn't playing, but, also against the Bills, which I thought was a really good win at MetLife Stadium. But they just kind of went in the dumps after that, lost 6 straight. And, here we are. We got Aaron Rodgers there, at the Garden, hockey games, basketball games, opera, like Taylor Swift concerts too. So
yeah, that's right.
He's just enjoying the nightlife that it is around the Jersey, New York metro area.
So we first started talking with you when you were covering the Dolphins. You covered the Carolina Panthers. You do some with the New York Daily News. You cover the NFL at large. I know you're in there with the beat writers, with the writers covering the Jets on a daily basis, but you do pay attention to the league at large. The expectations are ramped up, and they should be. They are a playoff contender. But you, Antwan, Staley, what do you see the New York Jets, not only within the division, within the NFL overall?
I think they're a playoff team. I think they're a team that could possibly win a playoff game too. You look at the AFC East as a whole. You got Buffalo. They won the division 3 years in a row. Nobody's going to take that away from them, as they shouldn't, because they are the top team to beat. But I wonder just how much better have they really truly gotten this offseason? They lose Tremaine Edwards there. The offensive line is still question marks, and then you got some things going on with Stephon Diggs too. Whatever that is. But it seems like it's a lot of smoke to that. So yeah, I'm curious to see where they still stand, up in the echelon, and really the AFC. It's not just the AFC East. And then the Dolphins. Dolphins have questions, obviously, with Tua. Can he stay healthy for a full 17 games? If he does, I think they're the best team in the division. But the fact of the matter is, even concussions aside, he's had his injuries concerned even dating back to Alabama. So I think that's basically where you look at Miami, and I think getting Vic Fangio was huge for them. I think it'll improve their defense immensely there. And then I know nobody's talking about the Patriots, and probably, deservedly so, but I definitely think they're still a team that could possibly win 8, maybe 9 games, depending on what happens if things break away. I think Bill O'Brien to have that offense looking a lot better than Matt Patricia and that Joe Judge and that crew did last year. Can be a whole lot worse. So it's definitely an interesting division for sure. And I think who's able to beat the Patriots or possibly sweep them, I think they'll have the leg up and win in the division.
Is Mac Jones as bad as Lubie says he is? He would rather have Casey Jones as his quarterback, I think, even deceased. I don't know. I thought the guy was okay. Is he that bad in your opinion, Antwan?
I think he's average. Yeah. I bet you, I'll tell you this, if Matt Jones was on the Jets last year, they would have made the playoffs.
Wow. Okay.
That tells you how bad the quarterback situation was with the Jets.
Oh, it was ugly.
They need an average quarterback play. They just need an average quarterback play, and I think they were in, especially considering how good their defense was. But yeah, I think Mac is just average. I think, he can maybe be a little bit beyond that, but I don't think he's anything special, to be quite honest with you.
In perusing your emails, whatever input you get from fans, letters to the editor, whatever, to what extent were the fans blaming Aaron Rodgers for the loss in the Hall of Fame game?
It's still the honeymoon period right now. Still the honeymoon period until at least the season starts, and then we'll see how it goes down. But everybody's in their best shape of their life. Everybody's happy, and then once the season starts, I tend to find it usually goes one way or the other. But yeah, everybody's still in that honeymoon phase with Aaron Rodgers.
Although, I get the New York Post delivered to the house here, and they do the thing. I don't know if you're inclined to also go with the who's hot and who's not type of thing in a synopsis of that day's practice activities. And it seems like Rodgers has only been mediocre, Antwan, Staley, according to whoever is reporting on this in the Post. Like they'll say, oh, well, you know what? He got picked off by Sauce Gardner in the end zone. He threw this pass, a wobbly piece of, duck to, a wide receiver. How sharp has he looked? What was your impression of what he's done so far, or does it matter?
I thought he's looked good. I thought he's looked good. I thought the offenses looked bad at times too, but not necessarily him. But I thought Sunday he was pretty good. He did have some missed throws there. The Sauce going to play, I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I think Sauce just made a tremendous play by, he was covering one receiver and then kind of peeled back and then also jumped in front of another one and picked off the pass. So yeah, I thought that was a great instinctive move by Sauce. But yeah, I definitely think, I think their offensive line is really the major question there. I don't think it's necessarily Aaron Rodgers. Can they protect him? And then if they can't, then I think that's gonna force him to make some errant throws. That, we've seen at times throughout camp. But the tackle positions is get back to form. Also, double shoulder surgery that he had in the all season. So that definitely take left tackle and also the right tackle with Max Mitchell and Billy Turner, who crazy enough was in Miami, still playing. Also a big major concern too as well.
Will the Jets be better than the Giants this year?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. You know what? I think a lot of things broke the Giants' way last year. I'm still not a big fan of Daniel Jones, and they're gonna have to ride on Zeke Elliott once again. I think the Giants might be like the team that's gonna finish under 500. To be honest with you, especially in that division where you got the Cowboys, you got the Eagles, the Commanders might they push to be better than them too. So.
All right, sounds great. Antwan, we'll let you go to work, man. I mean, what time did I hit the practice field out there today?
It's a lighter practice today because they have a joint practice, I guess, the Panthers tomorrow and Thursday. So I'm actually at the gym working out before practice. So.
All right, very good. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Hope to catch up with you many times throughout the season as the Jets saga unfolds. And, of course, we'll have a couple of clashes with the Miami Dolphins during the course of the regular season as well. So, naturally, the spotlight will be on what was at one time an intense rivalry. So maybe that gets resurrected also with both teams possibly having quality efforts going in 2023. Thanks so much for being with us. It's always a pleasure.
All right, no problem. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Antwan.
All right, Antwan Staley. Very mature, Antwan Staley, huh? I mean, he's got this thing down. What's it been? 2 years on the Jets beat?
The
Daily News?
I think it's been around a year, over a year, something like that.
It probably helped to be on that beat a year before this whole Aaron Rodgers thing hit, no? Because and we don't know where that's going to go. What is your thought? Does Rodgers bust a kneecap in the first game? And the whole season goes up in smoke. I mean, that's been an ongoing trend for New York teams this year, especially when you look at the Mets and the Yankees are sitting there. I think 5.5 games out of the wild card now, behind the Boston Red Sox in the wild card chase. Is it likely they make that up? It seems like every day something else negative happens to them in terms of injuries. The New York Yankees. I don't know if they're going to make it.
No.
So you have two. I mean, just monumental collapses and disappointments in New York. And will this follow the same pattern? Rodgers comes to the Jets, and it's a bust-out city, my friend.
I think he'll be okay. I just don't know if he's going to be this saving grace. And I get it last year. But again, they also had things work out. The Dolphin game, Tua wasn't playing. Like they had a lot of things work out that made them look better to me than they actually were. So this idea, they just had last year, if they just had a quarterback in those games, in those situations, yes, they may have made the playoffs. That doesn't mean this year adding a better quarterback, which Rodgers clearly is, will automatically make them this juggernaut. They'll be a playoff contender. I can see them getting into the playoffs. I don't know what Rodgers is going to be. I really don't. He played well for most of the second half last season until he got to that Lions game when they needed him, and he did not play well against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
I don't think their line's good, and I think their receiving core is pretty good. Wilson showed a lot of talent last year, but I don't think it's this, again, juggernaut that people are saying. I have a lot of questions about this, and I'm curious. I'm really curious to see what they are.
Well, and they have to do it. I mean, they've had high hopes about Brooklyn Nets.
Yep.
That was going to be brilliance with Durant and Harden. Kyrie Irving, it turned out to be an absolute disaster, and now they're back to sort of square two, maybe. But with Mikal Bridges, I guess they're going to try to build a team around this guy and see what happens. But far cry from the super team that was going to be together for maybe the next 5 years and dominate. Mets, same thing. I mean, just a disaster. They've already traded off many of their players, including their aging superstar pitchers who have both prospered as soon as they went somewhere else, started to perform a little bit. So, I mean, it could be an illusion. Wouldn't be surprising if that was the case. I think a lot of people down here would be very happy if that turned out to be the way it went. Although, do Jet fans here? No, they don't outnumber Dolphin fans.
No. Dolphins are the one team that they support a lot. I'm just curious to see how Aaron Rodgers handles the media when things turn.
Yeah.
He feels very Randy Johnson to me, where he's fine when everything's great, but the minute that the people are like, "What the fuck? What was that?"
Yeah, when they start out 0-2, and Rodgers is firing the ball at 52% completion rate with 3 picks and 2 touchdown passes, probably be a different story. All right, we're going to talk a little baseball. And Glenn Geffner is going to join us here in just a few minutes. We always love talking to Glenn. That's coming up right around the corner here on the Defo Show. And we'll be back with that in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:35. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in Style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
I don't know if the skipper manager, Don Mattingly, and we welcome Donnie Baseball to the show. Are you aware that our producer, Mike Lubie Lubitz, whom you've spoken with before setting up these interviews, is a known kiss of death?
He's a known kiss of death?
Known. I mean, universally renowned.
Then hopefully he'll say that he doesn't want us to win, or we don't think we're going to win.
Oh, he'll be rooting for you to win, but we just need him to predict last place, like that's Leo DeRocher time, you know?
Yeah, that's what we need him to go the opposite direction.
Now you're on the right page.
We now return to the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. Mattingly was aware of it. And as soon as Lubie embraced overwhelmingly the moves made by Kim Ng, and I was on the bandwagon as well, I thought, okay, we have something here. We welcome to the show Glenn Geffner, of course, a longtime broadcaster in Major League Baseball, and the last several years with the Miami Marlins did a tremendous job. We miss him, and just absolutely a real, a bad spot in the radio dial was when they removed this guy from the broadcast. We haven't really gotten over it, but we do love having him on the show because he's still very much in touch with the game. Glenn Geffner, how are you, my friend?
It's great to be with you guys. It feels like we just did this, didn't we, a couple of days ago?
It seemed like it, and
happened.
We were, waxing euphoric about, we were trying to figure out if the Marlins were going to do anything.
Yep.
And Kim Ng, I thought, I mean, when you look at it on the surface, you thought, wow, okay, Robertson, good move. Yeah, you need a closer. AJ Puck had kind of been fading, and it was not really somebody you could count on in that spot anymore. In fact, he had been coughing up leads in the ninth inning. They needed somebody who could drive home runs and maybe hit the ball out of the park. And they get two guys that can do it. When pick up Berger and Bell, it gave up some prospects. I guess I'm not sure how highly rated all of them were. I guess the one kid, the infielder.
The Mets, into the Guardians, Khalil Watson.
Yeah, that guy. Now, what was the story on him, Glenn? Was he doing anything that made you think he was going to pop into the bigs pretty soon?
No. His star had kind of fallen. He was a player, if you remember, a few years ago back in the draft, there was some speculation he might even go at number 1 overall.
Right.
And he fell to the Marlins at number 16, and there were some rumors of attitude issues and things like that. And he just never really put it together in the minor leagues, was sent home for some disciplinary reasons at one point last year, and just has not put it together. Has a very high ceiling, a lot of talent, and maybe he'll put it together with the Guardians at some point. But He was a guy I think the Marlins were ready to move on from.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, that makes some sense. And then they seem to get good value for the people that they traded. What did you think? I mean, when they made these moves, weren't you thinking, oh, geez, you know what? It may not be, the ultimate, but for what they needed and what seemed to be some of the weaknesses of the team, it appeared that it couldn't do anything but help.
Well, what I thought was the team was better after the trade deadline than it was before, but was it improved enough to get over the hump and to get to October? I don't think so. And when we talked about a week ago, I told you I really felt strongly they needed an impact starting pitcher, and they didn't do that. And now you see Yuri Perez being brought back and really having a lot thrust on his 20-year-old shoulders with innings limitations against him. Edward Cabrera has been sent down. Still don't have enough arms, and they still don't have enough 1-26 to beat really good teams on a consistent basis. And as we discussed last week, they made a lot of hay against bad teams in May and June, went 32-18 in that stretch, playing almost exclusively against 4th and 5th place teams. Outside of that stretch, they're 12 games under 500 this year. They're 26-38 against everybody else. And now they're 5-17 since the break. They're playing really good teams just about every series over the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And they just don't have the horses. It's not, in my opinion, the manager's fault. I know a lot of people have turned on Skip Schumacher in the last week or two. I've heard they've lost their hunger. They've lost their fire. I don't think it's any of that. I think it's simply they've stepped up dramatically in weight class. And while they were good enough to beat bad teams, they're not good enough to do that consistently against the better teams in the American League or the National League.
So look, Glenn, we've talked to you for years, and I'm the one, I'll say I'm, not we in this industry, I'm the one that will run the hill and move and then be the first one to slam when it looks like it's bad. Okay, so you're more reasonable, you're more patient. So I'll ask you, look, there was nothing wrong with Kim Ng making the moves. We talked to you, said it's time, you got to at some point blank or get off the pot. You know, you accrued all these minor leaguers so that you can make moves. Cool. But here's the deal. As we've seen with her moves and most of the Marlins moves over the last 15 years, ever since Dombrowski, to be brutally honest, they seem to all fail. Like they seem to all go wrong in some way or another. If you make the moves and then they go wrong, when is it time to criticize the moves? Like I'm trying to be patient, but it feels like she got aggressive and that's great, but the team's playing worse baseball.
Did she get aggressive enough? I think maybe is the question. So you look at the moves that were made, and we can break them down. They added 2 bats. Yes, Jake Berger, 26 home runs this year. You like that. But he came over a 214 hitter with a ton of strikeouts, a guy without really a defensive position. So, okay, I like the 26 home runs, but you take that away, he doesn't help you in a lot of other ways. And he's hit 1 home run now in the week or so he's been with the Marlins. Josh Bell, a couple of years ago, was a terrific player, even into the first half of last season. But he fell off dramatically after the Nats traded him to the Padres last year. Was not off to a good start. He was a spare part in Cleveland. The Guardians were happy to trade him away at this point because they brought a prospect into the deadline from the Rays who's going to be their first baseman of the future. So, yeah, they added 2 bats that are better than the people they had at those positions before. But are they as good as the guys the Braves have? Are they as good as the guys the Phillies have? You go around the horn with this Marlins team. I said at the start of the season, and I'll say it again today, second base, I'll give you one position where they've got a guy who can play for anybody in Major League Baseball. Outside of Luis Ariz, go around the horn, and don't tell me Jazz Chisholm, who can't stay on the field, or look at the numbers he's put up when he's been out there. He has not been the elite player, despite all the tools, all the talent, all the swag. He has not yet been an elite Major League player for an extended stretch. And again, he can't stay on the field. But really, there's one position on the field where the Marlins have an elite player, and that's Luis Ariz. You can't win with one elite player on the field.
All right, let's suppose this trend continues, unfortunately, in a negative direction. I remember, and we talked about this, I think, during one of our conversations during the season so far, that, I kept looking at these projections for the Marlins, even though they were winning at a high ratio, 14 games over 500. The projection for the season was like low 80s in terms of wins, as you were saying, because everybody was looking at this, heavyweight schedule that they were playing in the second half by comparison to, the teams that they cleaned up on in the first half. But with all that being said, the one encouraging thing would be that it seemed like, maybe they were willing to, make some moves, and go in a positive direction, not the usual resignation to, well, you know what, we got some young kids coming up. So that seemed like a plus in terms of the approach of the organization. But if they fail to make the playoffs, they finish with maybe around a 500 record. Where does that leave them, for the future? I mean, is this something that you should view, if that's the end result, as a stepping stone, or is it just more of the same, where it's just never going to amount to much?
I agree with you, Defo. They deserve credit for making some moves at the deadline this year. They brought 5 players in. Did they bring players in at the level that maybe some of us had hoped? No, they didn't. But they didn't just sit back. They went out, they made some moves, and the team really should be better today than it was the day before the deadline. It hasn't played that way so far, but it really should be. If you go back to the start of the year, to me, 80, 81 wins would have been a step in the right direction for this team, considering where it has been in recent years, 69 and 83 just last year, at the bottom of the league offensively, year in and year out. Now, when you start the way they started and you win 53 games, a club record before the All-Star break, people's eyes get big, the expectations grow, and all of a sudden, 80 wins doesn't look like a trip to the playoffs that you were hoping for at the All-Star break. So the bottom line is, wherever they end up this year, assuming they don't make the playoffs, and in my opinion, even though they're only, a game and a half out of the wild card right now, I feel like it's a safe assumption. They got to go out and they got to get better. They've got to spend money. They've got to bring some people in who are going to make this team tangibly better at several offensive positions. I really feel like they need to add to their starting pitching depth. They don't have enough. They've got to make this team better, because the Braves aren't going anywhere. The Phillies aren't going anywhere. The Mets are going to get better. I honestly believe the Mets are going to be better. Not all is lost in Queens. You look ahead to 24, 25, 26. Look, the Mets have some good players still in that roster. They've got money to spend. They've got an owner who wants to win. The Mets aren't disappearing. And I've also said for a while that once the Nationals get sold, I could see that team getting back into contention in a hurry. They brought some pretty good young talent in the last couple of years. And with a new owner who wants to make an impression, I could see them spending some money. So, and then forget about the rest of the National League. Forget about the rest of the American League. But just in the NL East, the big teams in this division are not going away. The Marlins need to get better, and it's just not as easy as sitting around saying, well, next year, Jazz will be healthy because he wasn't healthy last year or the year before. And next year, that this young pitcher is going to be better, because development isn't always linear. You don't go from A to B to C to D from one year to the next. Sometimes, believe it or not, people take a step backwards, or sometimes people don't improve at the rapid rate you hope they will. You got to be prepared for that. And that's why they really need to go out. And I think they need to bring in established bats at multiple positions, make this offense better. They're still dead last in the National League in runs scored. They're at the bottom, near the bottom in home runs and slugging. They just can't score enough runs. And that's why you play all these tight games early in the year against bad teams. They're finding ways to win. Remember, they were 12-0 one-run games. Well, they've got 12-10 in those games since. It's evened out a little bit. They're playing better teams. You're always looking for bullpen help. You're always looking for rotation help, but they've got to add offense. And how long we've been saying that? We've been saying that since they came in after the 2017 season and traded Stanton and Yelich and Ozuna and D. Gordon. The next one, they traded JT Realmuto. And now you look around all these years later and say, we don't have enough offense?
Okay, well, and that's my question to you. You know the organization well. Gotta. Need. Will they? Because they made the – that's it. They could have got Starling Marte. He wanted to be here. They didn't pony up for him, and he was a better bat than the Fakakta guys they brought in. Like Ava said, they brought in all these guys that looked good to the laissez-faire baseball fan. Avisel Garcia, Soler, Bell, Berger. But the baseball people who know or in the know were all like, what? What do you – like they're always getting that second or third tier market guy that might pacify the casual fan, but isn't making their team better. Like we had Dave Hyde at the beginning of the year, and he's like, yeah, these are fun little moves that aren't making them better. Do you see this organization actually going out and getting the kind of person that will make them better?
I hope so. Again, they added about $10 million in payroll at the deadline this year, so you give them some credit for that. But it's not, to your point, Lubie, enough to say, hey, we spent $53 million on Avi Garcia. Avi Garcia is not an above-average major league player. He's a guy who over the years...
detriment at this point.
He was a guy who over the years, if you look at his career, he kind of was good every other year. Not great, but good. But he was in good hitters' ballparks and in much better lineups where he wasn't a focal point. He came here and suddenly had to be a focal point in this lineup. He's not that guy. Solaire's hit some home runs this year to his credit. He's bounced back from last year. But when you go out and spend $53 million on Garcia, this isn't a team like the Yankees or the Mets that can just write that off. They're stuck paying that money, and that's money that's not going to somebody else, unfortunately. So they have to regret that move. And I wrote much earlier in the season about how maybe Bruce Sherman's a bit gun-shy after being talked into bringing in Avi Garcia. Because remember, at the very beginning, the vision that Derek Jeter sold Bruce Sherman on was we're going to draft and scout and develop better than anybody. We're going to bring all these players, homegrown guys in. They're going to be cheap. We're not going to need to spend big on free agents. Maybe around the edges here and there, you bring in a complimentary piece when you have a hole at one position. We're going to develop all these players. Well, where are they? There have been some pitchers, no hitters, and that's why they then had to go out and they had to spend on Garcia. They had to spend on Soler. They got to now spend money and trade prospects to bring in a guy like a Josh Bell or a Jake Berger. Berger's under control through 2028. If he can improve his contact, if he can improve the OBP a little bit, if he can maybe sell it at DH, he might be a decent player for this team moving forward. But he's not a middle-of-the-order game changer. And since the day Stanton walked out the door and Ozuna walked out the door, the Marlins have not had that. They need it.
Did you learn any Spanish during your years of being around the ball club? Because I was trying to figure out what Garcia was saying to Roberto Ortiz as he was leaving the field last night. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I don't think he was more contento. I don't think he was more contento on those shows.
Wow. I mean, he had to, I mean, that had to be the most insulting diatribe that anybody's delivered since like Billy Martin, I think. I mean, it was laced with Spanish venom. I mean, that had some salsa on it, whatever his comments were in that spot. All right, the Yankees are going to be coming to town. That's going to be a draw. And yet the Yankees are sitting there kind of floundering, in my opinion. I mean, 5.5 games out of the wild card right now. So they have teams that are battling with them. I think the Red Sox leapfrogged them last night and are a half game ahead. But 5.5 is a significant number to be out at this stage. I say Aaron Boone. You say what? Because I'd be curious to get your opinion, because everybody seems to despise this guy, even the most diehard, or especially the most diehard of Yankee fans. So is Aaron Boone as bad as people make him out to be?
You mentioned 5.5 games. It's not just chasing one team where you're 5.5 games back.
Right.
You got to pass multiple teams, which makes it tougher as well. We talked about this a week or so ago. You brought up Boone and Cashman. And I said I could see Boone being gone at the end of this season if the Yankees don't at least get to the playoffs and maybe even take a step or two into the postseason. But I didn't think that Cashman necessarily was on the hot seat at this point. I've actually changed on that a little bit after the deadline. As silent as they were at the deadline, they really didn't do anything to improve. And the natives are getting restless. It's not acceptable in New York. Look, I think anybody would take the Yankees record. If you go back to 1995, they've been in the playoffs every year but 4 going back to 1995. That's staggering. Not many teams have been in the postseason 4 times since 95. Yeah. They've been in every year except for 4, maybe 5 this year. And I think for them, the bigger concern is not just what's happened here in 2023, but when you look at the fact that this Baltimore team is pretty good and they're going to be here to stay now. And Tampa Bay finds a way every year. And the Blue Jays have so much talent. So that division that for the longest time was the Yankees, the Red Sox, and everybody else, all of a sudden is a heavyweight fight. There's a lot of pressure on the Yankees right now. There's a lot of pressure on the Red Sox right now as well. And I wouldn't think that anybody is safe in either of those two markets if this season ends and they're not in the playoffs.
How did Baltimore do it, Glenn? I mean, did they not come out of nowhere this year and surprise everybody? And here they've sustained it and are achieving, marks that they haven't had since Paul Blair was roaming center field.
It's great to see. They did it by bringing in Mike Elias, a smart general manager, a guy who came out of the Houston, St. Louis tree and knew what he wanted to do. And they blew it up, and they had some miserable years. But little by little, they were drafting brilliantly. They weren't blowing high first-round picks. They were getting young players to the big leagues, and now a lot of them have arrived kind of simultaneously, and they've made an impact in a hurry. And that's one of the areas where the Marlins have struggled. They brought guys up. They haven't stepped right in, and except for Yuri Perez to a certain extent this year, they haven't made an immediate impact. A team like the Orioles have seen a lot of young players step in the heat of the American League East and in the heat of a pennant race and play really good baseball. It's a great story, and it's great to see Camden Yards come alive again after so many years of that ballpark being empty. One of my favorite parks in baseball, very, very high on my list. A great energy, great history there. I go back to watching the Orioles at Old Miami Stadium in spring training back in the 70s when I was a kid. And I've always kind of had a special place in my heart for that franchise because of the great teams and the great players that have passed through there. So it's good to see kind of that legacy being reborn here a little bit. It wasn't easy. They took some lumps in recent years, but they've done it the right way.
Yeah, it's always nice to see new blood enter into postseason conversations and maybe even be a big factor. And especially, I mean, to have that team leading the American League East when you mentioned some of these other heavyweight clubs that are in there that were very serious and spent a lot of money. What does this year's catastrophes in terms of the teams that really unloaded, like the Mets, San Diego Padres, they all spent zillions of dollars to try and be in contention. It's been a disaster. So do you think, people always say, well, that'll alter everybody's thinking, that they'll find a better way to do it. But it seems like the same clubs come firing right back, like the Yankees, which you could include in that category, I guess, of big spenders that are floundering. Do you see, any of those franchises going away from those strategies? Or, I mean, you mentioned the Mets, and they think they have some prospects now, but I mean, it's weird to see the complete shift that's taken place in terms of the conversation surrounding a team where all of a sudden they're willing to accept being lousy in 2024, even though you think they might be better than even they're letting on. But what about the money spending? Is that going to change, or will that always be the same with the same clubs going all in like that?
I think it's going to be the same with the same clubs who have the resources to do that. I do think, though, that I give Steve Cohen credit for not doubling down when things were going terribly wrong this year, saying, look, this isn't working. Let's get some guys out of here. And to his credit, he spent the money to pay guys to play for other teams to get really good prospects back in return. And that's one of the reasons why I think their rebuild is going to be faster than it might have been otherwise. If they would have forced other teams to pay Verlander's salary or Scherzer's salary, they brought some really good players back. They've taken what was a bottom 5 farm system, and in some of the publications I've seen the last week or so, now maybe a top 10 farm system. And those players either come up and help you in the big leagues, or maybe they're guys you're able to use in spin-off and trades where you're not as reliant on free agency as the Mets were going into this year. When Steve Cohen came in, he said on day one, he said, look, my goal is to be like the Dodgers, to have the money to spend to bring in anybody we want, but also to constantly be churning talent out of the farm system, bringing guys up. He said, we're not anywhere near that in the minor leagues yet. We've got to get there. In the meantime, I'm going to spend more to try to win in the short term in the big leagues. That hasn't worked, but his vision is the right vision. And I think now he's kind of given that a little bit of a boost with the players he brought in at the deadline. Now we'll see. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see David Stearns come in to run baseball operations for them, the former head of baseball operations for the Brewers, who's a New York native who's been linked to that team for a while. He had left the Brewers, but was technically still under their control for this year. I think you're going to see him calling the shots beginning this offseason. And like I said, there's certain markets, Defo, where you can't be down for long. You can't rebuild. Fan bases will not allow it. New York is one of them, especially with Cohen and his resources in there now, especially as bold as he's been as saying he wants to win a World Series in 3 to 5 years. Well, this is year 3 now, and it's out the window. So I think the Mets are going to reload in a hurry. Are they going to be a World Series favorite next year? Probably not, but the Mets are going to be in the mix.
All right, one last thing, and we always thank you for your time here. It's great talking baseball with you, and we don't know that we can solve the problems of the Marlins, or that you can't project anything other than at best being mired in mediocrity for some time down the road. But I watched quite a bit of the College Baseball World Series. I always liked that event. As a baseball fan, I had a chance to get out there and cover a couple of the College Baseball World Series when the Canes were involved. And oddly, I was doing play-by-play on the radio with the late, great Sonny Hirsch. And, at first
I was thinking, listening, Defo.
I didn't know if I wanted to schlep out to, Omaha, Nebraska for like 8 days. It wasn't exactly my scene. I would have much rather been in Las Vegas or something. But when I got there, I couldn't help but, be heartened to see, the way that the city embraced this event. And they came out, even though they didn't have necessarily a dog in the fight. They still came out. They rooted for LSU. They rooted for this one. And a lot of people traveled. But I'm watching this guy, Paul Skeens, from LSU. How far away is he from being a major leaguer? Because he looked like one of those guys that might be ready to go like tomorrow. How far away is he actually? Yeah.
I think you'll see him in the big leagues next year.
Oh, yeah?
I really
Okay.
do. I really think you'll see him in the major leagues next year. He is that good. He's that polished. That LSU team was loaded, had the top 2 picks in the draft, Skeens to Pittsburgh. And I think you're going to see him in the big leagues next year. If the Pirates wanted to, they could bring him up this year, but they have nothing to play for at this point. Why start the clock on him? Let him get his feet wet. Let him get used to professional baseball a little bit. But whether it's opening day or not, I'm not sure. But I think you'll see him in the big leagues for the Pirates next year. And I'm going to second your love of the College World Series. And growing up down here, a passionate Canes baseball fan.
Oh, yeah?
One of my
Okay,
biggest regrets is I never got to Old Rosenblatt Stadium to see the College World Series. I watched, I listened all the time. I understand the magic of Omaha. Even in the new venue, it's an event I try never to miss. But I'm jealous of you being out there those years. And I was listening seriously to Sonny all those years with you, with Will McEnany and others calling the games over the years. Canes baseball was a big part of my baseball development growing up in South Dade.
Well, actually, it was a big event here for the most part because we didn't have anything else at the time, which was great.
Exactly
Although
right.
JD Arteaga, who did he just take over as coach of the Canes?
Yep.
It took him forever. I mean, if they had the pitch clock in there when Arteaga was on the mound, they would have just forfeited every game. I mean, those games would take like 4.5 hours. And they had a kid, Kenny Henderson, who talk about poor scouting. He was the number 5 overall pick in the major leagues from the Milwaukee Brewers organization. He abdicated going pro and goes to the Canes. Couldn't get out of the first inning. I mean, it was the biggest mistake. They offered him $500,000, and he took the college, scholarship instead. And I think the highest he ever got was like Rancho Cucamonga, which is what? Is that single A?
It's A-ball, California League. It's a good thing he got his education then.
Yes, pretty much. I don't know what he's doing today, but he's probably, just a massive success. All right, Glenn, always a pleasure. Where can people find your stuff? Because you're churning out stuff that is very, very impressive, my friend.
Thank you. My Substack is glengeffner.substack.com. You can find my website at glengeffner.com. And we really appreciate the support we've gotten on Substack over the course of the year. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll keep cranking out information the rest of the season, into the off season as well. And we'll see where it goes. But it's been great seeing people jump on board and keeping the conversation going.
All right, and a lot of teams still alive in a chase here. So baseball, very exciting, coming down the stretch and into the month of September as we progress through August. So we hope to talk to you again real soon, my friend. Always a pleasure.
I know football is about to start, but we're not done with baseball yet. So let's do this again soon, guys.
Of course.
All right, sounds good. Glenn Geffner, ladies and gentlemen. All right, great job there by Glenn, huh? Wow. So you know his shit or what?
Baseball, and I was trying to find someone to talk baseball. I'm like, oh my God, Glenn. So he does a great job.
Why not? Yeah.
Marlins, and he was always pretty honest, but of course, there's always some veil of you can't be totally honest when you work for a ball club. Now we can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are you feigning optimism? You want to be optimistic. I mean, especially when you're around a team. Look, we wanted to, I think that hey, all of this stuff is right. I was, a big fan of Mattingly, and I actually thought Urania had a chance to win the Cy Young. Did I get duped into that?
Yeah, that was weird. No one agreed with you. Even Mike Hill looked at you like you were a weirdo. Mike Hill's like, yeah. But
then he started opening day and gave up like 5 runs before he got a single out. And I thought, well, there goes the Cy Young. That was it. All of that money goes up in smoke right away. All right, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox coming your way 12 o'clock. Tomorrow, Tony Segreto joins us, goes old school. And Thursday, no trivia challenge this week, right? Gurgle's on the road.
Gurgle's the next 2 weeks. He will be in Toga. He's doing his toga thing.
Oh, how nice is that, man? Yeah, you talk about, having a little bit of so-called envy. That would be all of these people that are going to Toga. While I'm sitting at home here thinking, boy, this women's soccer is really interesting, isn't it? What is the score in this thing? I think it might have gotten to 5-0. The French are destroying the Moroccans, man. They're having them choking on couscous. A header just goes in. Wow, one after another, one goal after another. All right, that's it. We're going to see you at 12 o'clock. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox comes your way. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, thanks to Glenn Geffner, Antwan Staley for joining us here on the show. We'll see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
Did we accomplish anything today, Lubie? What do you think? That was good. The guests were good. It's 9:04.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.